This is very analog.
I know. We've kind of enjoyed going back to the past.
Brian, when can a ghost attack?
It depends. Is this ghost here with a purpose, or does this ghost have no agenda?
Wait, let me
Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by the legend himself, Mr. Adam Curry, the Podfather. Thank you so much for coming out, man.
Dude, first of all, it's close to my house.
Good.
Second of
Nice.
all, I am so proud of what you've done here. This is
it's
so
happening.
nice. Yes, it's so nice to see where all your money went. Congratulations.
Noted pauper Brian Brushwood. Everyone's been wondering where he squandered all of his dollars.
This is boyhood dream stuff, man. Beautiful, really beautiful.
Well, and it's we talked a little bit about it before we started recording, but it's man, all credit to the missus, because it takes a special lady to listen to her husband say, it'll be like a Wonka factory where people come and it's like a bed and breakfast. They had a good time. Then they do magic and then we all hang out and we make sketches.
I don't remember that part of Willy Wonka, but I think
but it seems to be exactly that. And I'm happy to see that she's taken over sections of your empire for her own
I had to show
art.
you the kiln and all that stuff.
I didn't see, and I saw where it was.
And then she's able to put her over Justin's shoulder right now, since we're audio only. We're seeing a bunch of Bonnie's work on display. I don't know. It's you read stories about certain times where I don't know, art collectives happen or whatever, and you roll your eyes. You're like, well, that was never sustainable. And then one day you bought a former nudist colony, and here you sit. So I'm glad you're enjoying it while it's still here.
Before it eventually falls into disrepair and ruin.
Like, we all know how this story ends, right?
Exactly.
No, it seems to be good, man. It seems to be good.
Speaking of which, tell me what's up on the no agenda front. I know I'm going to guess that in the 3-4 years since we last talked, I think most of that episode was about your origin story, and
I was so hammered I don't really remember it all.
According to
you were great.
According to the comments,
was it a good appearance?
You were fantastic. Oh, legendary.
According to the comments, we got a lot more genuine backstory on Adam Curry than Adam Curry normally doles out.
Well, maybe just because you asked me. Sure.
Well, and so since then, I would imagine. You guys have had no shortage of things to talk about on No Agenda.
Oh man! So the sequence of events was actually I did the Joe Rogan show in March of 2020, like March 3rd, I think.
Oh, right, as it was coming in,
just before the whole. In fact, also the guest after me was Osterholm, the gloom and doom guy who keeps telling us we're all going to die and we're in the mouth of the hurricane and this beast is going to devour us, which never quite happens. So he was out there promoting whatever was going on.
promoting
death and destruction. He was promoting 3.5 million dead people according to the models of the time. But for me, that was a seminal moment because Joe Rogan, in essence, recredentialized me. Because I'm 56. Most people who are in their 20s don't know me from MTV,
right.
and they don't really know the backstory. Podcasting, it started with Serial, kind of that stuff.
Yeah.
Just so I have my head straight, had Joe Rogan moved to Austin by this point?
No. This is way before. This is way before.
Okay.
In fact, he wanted to move to Texas, and I said, "You better come to Austin." This was after we met the first time, so that for me was phenomenal, and I'm very appreciative because when someone says, "Hey, this guy's the Podfather," he started this all, and he let me actually talk about all kinds of I thought interesting topics. It brought a whole new level of people to No Agenda, in combination with Joe announcing a month later that he was going to Spotify. So a lot of the Joe Rogan listeners. Our model is value for value, and people donate, whatever they feel they get out of the show.
Right.
And what was interesting is that so many Roganites, we call them, and then it's not like they've left Joe Rogan, it's just the tribes crossover. They had never really been asked to do anything or to support anything. And so they're incredibly generous. They have, fantastic notes, etc. So at this very moment when this took place, then we have, the first lockdown and I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch everything. I'm going to get all the data. I'm going as deep as I can. And within a week, I'm like, holy shit, there's a lot wrong with this. There's a lot of things they're switching data. They're using different charts. There's a lot of things that are weird. And I just went balls to the wall for a full 15 months almost.
Yeah.
And we were doing, 3.5, 4 hour shows sometimes, just going through all the stuff.
And the news cycle churns out whatever, the news cycle has to churn out, but it's as though all of a sudden for 18 months straight, it was nothing but the perfect no agenda buffet.
Shooting fish in a barrel, my friend.
I mean, yeah, your guys' whole brand is like, well, maybe this isn't quite as we seem. And normally the poo-pooing of it is like, well, it's not that bad. And then all of a sudden businesses aren't allowed to open. There's everything but cops in the streets issuing.
There's talk about passports to go outside.
Yeah. I mean, like this was like the world upside down. And I feel like there are like a few segments of the world, germaphobes. Number one, the unquestioned winner of the pandemic was germaphobes who never wanted to shake hands before. Now totally validated. Introverts second. Yep. But certainly doomsayers. Oh my God. Like that's big. I mean, like strong broads.
I don't think we're necessarily doomsayers, but there's a lot of agendas at play.
Yes.
And,
and
remember, this was also Trump was still, in his final year. We had an election coming up. All these things were taking place. There was and it was worldwide. I mean, we really try to focus on much more than just the United States. And it was almost as if it was templatized. And so many things were exactly the same. And it was not long after that I started to hear politicians around the world talk about Build Back Better. I think in November of 2021 or October, I had the first supercut. Like, listen to all these, everyone's doing Build Back Better. What kind of plan is this? And then we have this great reset from these jamokes in Davos, the World Economic Forum. So regardless of where this comes from, the validity of it, what really happened, I've always been focused on who's making the moves and who's taking advantage of it. Never let a good pandemic go to waste.
Well, and I'll tell you this much: I'm cautious around political stuff. I'm quick to warn people that I'm a crazy libertarian alien, so you probably don't want to hear from me. But man, oh man, I found myself on many a podcast talking about the fact, the horror of the noble lie. Like there was a plan, and step one of dealing with the pandemic was don't bullshit the people, because that will erode trust. And first thing they say is nobody use masks because we need them. Psych, everyone use masks. I don't know. Like
crisis management in general is difficult, because it moves so fast, and a gigantic bureaucracy, any gigantic bureaucracy, let alone the federal government, is going to probably react poorly to it. But, geez, that is
allow
not
me to
great.
Pull it out of the pandemic and give you a different scenario, which I'm kind of starting to see appear now. In late 2019, there was a huge problem in the banking sector with the reverse repo market, as it's known. And it's really complicated. I don't pretend to understand it all, but there's really two types of money. There's the money that the banks shuttle between themselves overnight every single day, which is hundreds of billions of dollars.
Right.
And then there's the money that is in our system, in our so-called bank accounts.
Right.
And then, of course, there's the money that you can hold in your hand. So that overnight repo market was running into big problems. It's banks lending each other money overnight, and typically that's a very low percentage rate, and that was spiking up to 10%. And that typically means that someone has to go. There's a weak brother or sister in the system. And in 2008, it was Lehman, and then they cut them out, and they totally got screwed.
Right.
They all deserve it as far as I'm concerned, but that's irrelevant. So something was going on. Then we get this pandemic. And the general consensus was, well, you just get used to this because we don't know. It's going to take a long time. Lockdowns were extended. And here's the thing that I think, if I look at this as a global conspiracy of finance, Trump all of a sudden said, we're going to do vaccines. We're going to do it as fast as you've ever seen it. No one's ever seen this before. It's Operation Warp Speed. In fact, our current vice president was saying, if it's from Trump, I'm not going to take it. I'm not taking no Trump. The vaccine hesitancy came out of Kamala Harris's mouth first.
Right.
And I believe that was not intended to happen. Trump played to the greed of mainly Pfizer. This is what I think. I could be totally off, but this is what I'm seeing. Vaccines 4, 5, 6 years. This was something completely new technology, rushed ahead, blasted through FDA compliance. That was not supposed to happen.
Right.
This was supposed to be 4 years of hell and lockdown, in my opinion.
And for context, a lot of depending on how you look at it, it truly is a success story that America is very, very slow with their FDA approval process, because that's why the United States mostly did not participate in the horrors of thalidomide. It got approved very quickly in Europe, and a lot of babies were born without arms and legs, and then it got shut down. But America, it never got approval.
That's not true.
They
really?
Just
had very small arms and legs.
Okay.
They still count.
I thought it stood up very badly.
Come on, man. Come on.
But you, I 100% am on board with you, where it's like we here in America, we like to take things very slow. And like, to me, the libertarian in me goes bonkers at the idea, like, I'm sorry, let me get this straight. The government said we will buy your vaccines whether or not they work
up front,
even if they don't work. That sounds bonkers.
And by the way, even now, and I think as we record this, we're around 66% vaccinated with at least one shot. There still are full vaccines that we just haven't approved, that are just sitting in a warehouse, like AstraZeneca. We still haven't approved.
Yeah, I think last
year, and we're giving them away to other countries, but like, we're just sitting on it, and we've overbought with like Moderna and Pfizer, but just in case.
That was part of the brilliance, because I feel, going back to the global issue, I feel that there was a financial issue. It needed a reset. That's where the only people who are at the World Economic Forum are bankers. That's ultimately who it is. And this upset their apple cart. You reset something when something else is done or destroyed. And maybe it was, just look at the evidence. Close all small stores, keep the big stores open.
Yeah.
This smells really, really bad.
So, all right, but does that bring us to the realm of this was intentionally spread, or this was something that like once it's out there, maybe we just don't clean up the mess as fast as you would otherwise?
Well, it's what we saw a year and a half ago. It turns out now to be accepted that this
the lab leak,
that this did come from a lab. And I'm sorry, but when I see Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert, that to me was scripted. It's like, I'm going to soften the blow because, we were all saying it was crazy and it couldn't be. And I'm going to come out here. We're going to joke a little bit. Bill Maher does his little bit to soften it so it gets a little more accepted. Okay. By the way, it's all the distract. Who cares? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What happened, and how it happened. Maybe one day we'll figure it out. But what people did was unbelievable. We locked up healthy people. We closed down. We started separating people and saying, you're essential, you're not essential. These are not very American concepts.
Right.
So that to me was like, holy crap, what is going on? I lived in Europe for most of my life. I've never even seen anything like this from any of the socialist countries I've been in. My daughter has had a very hard time. She lives in Rotterdam, and they had a curfew for months and months and months because, the virus is nocturnal. It gets you at night when you're out on the street.
I just feel like I'm being fully seduced. I'm about to subscribe to a newsletter. I'm about to.
So, and we're not done yet. So once the vaccine, I knew that, we're going to do vaccines. So by the time those vaccines are ready, people will be begging for them. And we predicted this idea of a passport, of course. Now, it's all
that doesn't come to pass, though.
Europe just did their the EU green passport. The UK will do the passport. Now,
That's to get in and out of the country on flights, right?
No, they want to use it for a lot more.
Anything.
But they've kind of failed at it, and so now you can get the passport for in three ways. One, you're fully vaccinated. Two, you have antibodies and you've survived COVID. Or three, you have a negative test in the last 72 hours.
Yeah.
So, okay, fine. So, what does it really do? It nudges you towards vaccination. That's the whole intent. Then we had another agenda playing, which was pharma. Now, pharma owns media. They look at what the ads are. You never see a negative story about pharma unless it's Johnson & Johnson. And they had less blood clots than anybody else, but the Pfizer marketing, they were paying people on TikTok, paying people on Reels, everybody, look at my jab, huge budget. And they completely obliterated Johnson & Johnson. I mean, they did that. And they got shut down, which actually hurt everything. I think all vaccinations, people
I was so against that. I thought that was a horrifying decision to especially at that point, and with the Johnson & Johnson one, which for whatever reason, I got the Johnson & Johnson one because it was the one available to me.
It was one and done.
It was one and done.
They had good marketing.
It was old technology. It wasn't the mRNA thing.
That's what I thought.
It was,
the Adreno.
Madrano.
The Johnson & Johnson gives you some adrenovirus.
Yes,
Moderna is
that's a different thing.
I'm talking about the technology. It's still not an attenuated virus like a monkey virus they put in there or some shit like that. Anyway, clearly there was all kinds of warring going on there. I mean, Pfizer is so powerful. They even changed their logo midway. You see that their logo is no longer like the boner pill. It's now the helix of the DNA. And it's not even their technology. They licensed it.
So are you comfortable with the mRNA process?
No.
Interesting.
No.
Why not?
Not at all. Because it's still unknown what it does long term. I mean, there's so much stuff coming up. Look, I'm obviously not a doctor, not a scientist, but there's a lot of doctors who say, hey, this may not be the best. In fact, the most logical thing I've heard is, because I have, of course, done my research into mRNA technology, and it's really more intended, it's originally for cancer treatments, to give people specific treatment for the type of cancer and who you are as a person.
Right.
To do that as a one-size-fits-all seems like a bad idea. A lot of doctors are saying you really shouldn't do that.
And that's
also
just
vaccinating during a pandemic is also not done. If you really get someone to sit down and talk to you, they say, well, that's really a bad idea because of variants. It actually can create variants. So there's a lot of things that I think were done incorrectly. And now you're seeing there are many doctors who are saying, you know what, this, like Peter McCullough, who is, his credentials are pretty bulletproof. He says, no, this is not a good idea to do it this way. And now we're learning that ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, all these things, that everybody kind of jumped on board to say, oh, that's got to be shit because it was Trump.
Right.
And so that's to his discredit. He should have said, hydroxychloroquine it'll kill you. Because then people might have used it and but there was no treatment going on. No one was being treated. Like if you had the flu, you get some budesonide, some other things to go home with. They were just saying, go home. If it gets worse, come back. We'll put you on the ventilator. That was weird. And that's not the way medicine is supposed to work.
So let's
we could talk about sex or anything. I mean,
no. Well, I kind of want to pull back to like the meta level.
With noted sex haver Adam Curry
during the pandemic.
I've heard about
it.
Hell yeah. I only did it doggy style, both with masks, just in case.
Way to go, brother.
Just in case.
I should have tried that one.
I turned backwards and watched TV.
Wow. Put up the plexiglass like I was at CVS.
Man, that's a good way to
visual.
Fucking stop talking about the coronavirus. Now we're all thinking about doggy style looking the other way.
But here's the thing. So I just started to follow the World Economic Forum and just followed them, the Davos radio, they have podcasts. They're not bashful. They say all these things. In the future, you will not own anything and you'll be happy. You won't own a house and you'll be happy. You've seen the video. That's not just fake. They mean this. Now, they're insane or whatever. Maybe they're next level and I can't fathom how great that'll be.
Right.
But, for them to say, Klaus Schwab literally says, well, let's take this opportunity of COVID-19 pandemic and be prepared for the cyber pandemic. And then right away, we get ransomware, boom, 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 all these infrastructure places. And then what's next? Climate change.
Yeah.
So I can tell you now, I predict they will try, some country will at least try to lock people down to stay in your house because you're polluting the atmosphere.
Would it be fair to... because it occurs to me that not many, but some people hearing this will be meeting you for the first time. Would it be fair, because my impression is that No Agenda, if reduced to one sentence, which is an unfair way to do it, but would it be fair to say that No Agenda has two tenets? There's always a boogeyman, and somebody's always making a buck. Is that the core of the No Agenda message?
What we really do is deconstruct media. So we play 40 to 50 clips an episode, and whatever is being said, we're going to respond to that. Now, in 99% of the cases, we're going to pull a clip where we go, what? What are you saying?
Right.
How does that work? How is that reported? It's really the reporting and the messaging more than anything. That's what we try to pull apart.
Right.
And you pull it apart by playing other material, by doing some research. Now, we're at like, I don't know, over 1 million people listen. I don't know exactly what it is. They're all experts in a certain field.
Oh, so
we have
to get
so many people, ventilators very early on. We were told by people who are listening to the show who train, said, we fucked it up.
This is a bad...
We were killing people. We were setting the pressure too high. And that was just all the instructions. So we got it wrong. But no one ever really said that. No one really came out and said, we screwed that up.
By the way, just to correct, because I didn't want to miscategorize what No Agenda does, No Agenda is always skeptical of whatever the boogeyman is.
Well,
but is fairly convinced that somebody's making a buck.
We're rarely cheerleaders for anything.
Yes, exactly.
I think it comes
like
from the fact that both of you guys have spent so much time inside the media machine, and that's something that, from my perspective, in a very, very small manner, because I did not spend, I worked at a few newspapers, but I didn't spend like a career inside journalism. Even my understanding of it is illuminating to like the audience on politics, because there is a way that a story gets made. There is a way that an editor assigns a reporter to do a thing. There's a way that, especially in television journalism, things get edited or certain clips are put together in a certain way that I think,
or how questions are asked, or how a little snippet is put in, like what we call a whipsaw, all these different things. So John and I both have, 4, 5, 6 decades of television media experience.
Combine that. You have a century between the two.
We got 100 together, probably. Yeah. John has real publishing, newspaper, book experience, which I don't have. I have a lot of experience in high output television.
Yeah.
And, but I've also done big shows, little shows, I know how the politics of this work. And so
because this stuff doesn't just come out. And I think that's really where you guys kind of make your meal, is that the concept from the end user perspective is very often like, oh, these are just words. It's just like the wind. It just sort of happens. This is exactly how it went down because this was how it was prepared. And if you've been on the other side of it and you've seen a gigantic, massive chaos and
it gets to the point where someone says something and the way they say it is like, oh, okay. Well, I'm pretty sure that exactly the opposite is going to happen, or probably the opposite is true. So now we get the lab. There was so much evidence that this came from a lab. We had that, within a month or two. We were like, look at all this. Here's all these doctors.
It was on Google Maps. Like you can look up. You can look up
where the actual construct. Just all these things, and so I think what happened. Okay, there's an element, and it's uniquely because of our age and experience and our family situations where we just don't give a fuck. So we can laugh about almost anything. We'll make a terrible pun or joke about anything. And within the first few weeks, it became apparent that people, particularly a lot of women, were tuning in. They were listening. Their husbands were telling them to listen. And the big response we got is, you got us through this with humor and analysis, and it wasn't trying to scare me all the time. And you would make a joke about it. And even death, you can make death funny. I don't have to tell you guys that. You can make death funny. And that became kind of an interaction with the audience. We had people locked down, like, hey, I'm in jail in Australia. Hey, I'm in Canada. We're sending Morse code. Help us out.
Yeah.
And you can kind of joke about this, but in the meantime, people are getting exposed to, wow, this is kind of weird what's happening. And your television mainstream is not geared for that. It's geared for intelligence, what they want published. I mean, our entire system in the United States, for sure, of press is completely corrupt. Completely. And it goes back to the Church Commission.
Okay, yeah.
Inside everything.
Let me ask you that then. My perspective from my experience in newspaper journalism specifically is that there is far more terror about their business model, and if not incompetence, then acquiescence of, well, this just seems prevailingly true. And so the assignment editors are going to assign certain kinds of stories. They're going to want certain kinds of facts when it comes back. I, from my perspective, have a hard time seeing where it is corruption as opposed to, let's say, incompetence, which in general tends to be my default. Whenever I see a big weird system, I tend to believe that this is a bunch of things that, like, people don't realize how they fit together, but it benefits everybody.
So the corruption became apparent. And of course, I can't necessarily prove corruption.
Sure.
But when the New York Times and the Washington Post and respected news outlets start just quoting unnamed sources, people familiar with the president's thinking, that's bullshit. That's not how news works.
That is bad.
And that became accepted during Trump. It's just this or that, whatever it is. He said this. And of course, a lot of it is not true. But when you go down that path,
it was gossip reporting. And certainly from spending a lot of time in
these
entertainment.
Are all intelligence sources who are feeding things.
Yes.
This is what our intelligence community, fucking community. They're right next to the black and brown community. Our intelligence community.
6 seasons in a movie.
This is what they do. So they'll be in Africa, and they'll get a job at the Uganda Times. So that then a story will be planted that the New York Times can say, according to the Uganda Times, that happens all the time. Nancy Pelosi even said that that's how they often spin the American media.
As a matter of fact, Ryan Holiday's
fake
first
news
book,
machine.
That's exactly what it is.
Literally is.
Well, that's. I mean, we saw this with the run up to the Iraq War, where
aluminum tubes.
Exactly.
What the hell? That was bad.
That would run with intelligence sources in the New York Times, and then Dick Cheney would be on the Sunday shows talking about how
exactly the same thing.
This is in the New York. The New York Times hates me, and they said this thing. So
Ryan Holiday in his first book, Trust Me, I'm Lying, talked about his time working for various people, and he called it trading up the chain, where he knows that out there are hundreds of thousands of bloggers who have to make 5 to 7 posts a day, and they're going to find something. So he would put up a poster and then vandalize his own poster, and then from another account,
write about it,
and then would post an Instagram account of like, whoa, these people are really upset at this guy, and then send it from another account to a very low level news organization. They would run it, and then from another account, be like, oh, look what KTLA is talking about, and then it shows up on the blogosphere.
And you see this with blue check mark reporters on Twitter, and they're all DMing each other all day about the stories they think would be. There was a young woman from Houston, reporter, who just went to Project Veritas, and she announced it during her segment, like, I'm going to tell everyone what's going on. And she actually recorded her editor, it's a local station in Houston, saying, the stories we do is what our CEO reads. That's what we're doing. I don't want a story about Bitcoin when poor black viewers are watching. She literally said that.
Wow.
What the hell? Okay, because she has made the decision for herself that quote unquote poor, quote unquote black people, because these are terms. I mean, how can you even say these things as a serious person? How about Americans or anything like that? No, she's segregating it in two ways. They don't care about Bitcoin. The one thing that may actually save a lot of people. That's what goes on. When I was at MTV, oh my God, the things that I wasn't allowed to say. The first week I was there is when they all started to hate me at the office because I was interviewed by TV Guide. Remember that?
Yeah,
TV Guide.
sure.
That was the biggest magazine in America.
Massive. Kids, ask your parents. It ruled entertainment.
It was the Google of its time.
Yeah, and I'm like, Adam Curry, I'm being introduced as the new VJ. And, so they asked me, like, well, what was it like when you met Madonna? I said, well, she wasn't very nice. She wasn't when I met her.
Right.
And I was done, and, Carol Robinson, who was running press at the time, she was like, that I'm horrified. I'm like, what? I thought it was a pretty good interview. You can't say that about Madonna.
Right.
I'm like, okay. And that was my first clue. Dude, there's so many deals that are done. Like, don't say that. Special weekend for Michael Jackson, because then he'll do the Video Music Awards. Everything's a deal, and it has nothing to do with presenting anything but prepackaged stuff that benefits the corporation,
because they're protecting the industry. Well, like they want to sell records, and MTV was an organ to do so. Make stars, promote current stars.
MTV was there to sell Skittles.
Yeah,
that was their job.
That's what MTV made money doing. But
that was MTV's job.
Yes,
that's how MTV saw themselves. Not as we're doing cool music,
a culture, beacon.
Real world that works. Yeah. Goodbye,
right.
videos. Fuck it, we're going. And they were right, business wise. They were right. But like Spring Break, that wasn't like an MTV invention. Like, oh my God, Spring Break would be cool. The kids are there. No, Budweiser wanted. We want Budweiser on the channel. And so they came up with this, let's go to where Budweiser is. I helped them pitch with the pitch reel, doing like a fake Spring Break report for Budweiser specifically, so that they could then get Budweiser on the channel for this big event. Because it's
sponsored content.
But it's to sell, in that case, whatever the sponsor is.
Well,
it has nothing to do
in this case, you're shaping the story in order to
all
sell
television.
The Skittles.
Just turn on the television. All television is pharma. They own it. Look at the numbers. They spend more than anybody else.
I just now realized I cannot remember the last time I watched live television of any variety. But
they're moving into podcasts.
Yeah, definitely.
There's all kinds of pharma products. But
by the way, Blue Chew.
Yeah.
Just kidding. We're not
brought to you by.
But I mean,
do they work though?
I don't really need them.
But so when
he doesn't even need plexiglass, this guy.
So there's really pharma. I mean, they own so much of the media, and not technically own, but you cannot do a negative story because the phone will get picked up. Oh, really?
So this was always in newspaper. The phrase was always, you can't criticize the car dealerships. Because the car dealerships were what was keeping
the bread and butter.
Yeah, the newspapers afloat, because they would buy the circulars, they'd buy the front page ads. Yep. There was no bigger thing. So you were never going to get an expose about how there's corruption at the Maroney auto dealership, because that was the big breadwinner.
So now with all the media that we have, all the sources, and all of the financial entanglement, I would say we try to pick not all the bullshit, but try to pick the good things out. Say, oh, here's something that actually made sense. Wow, that guy got away with saying that. We'll never see her again. Don't get in a hot tub. Don't fly in small aircraft. So that's just as fun to pick the nuggets where it seems that it's clearly true.
I guess I'm stumbling across a part that should have been obvious to me, and I'm certain you talk about on No Agenda, but working inside, for lack of a better word, the machine of MTV and getting the directives and getting the missives and thou shalts and thou shalt nots or whatever, it occurs to me that I would imagine No Agenda might feel in some ways like a repudiation of all that time of like to be able to be completely authentic, and as the title says, to have no agenda.
I was held hostage by my hair for most of my professional life. And
oh man, brother, can I relate?
So to cut that shit off and not give a crap anymore, and to just say
hats,
what I want.
I love it. I grow beards. I wear mullets.
and to know that I don't have to be worried about a meeting with an advertiser. If someone doesn't like what I say or what John says, they may not support us.
And that's fine.
Fine.
That's a churn that happens every day.
And it's direct and authentic. That's the way a transaction ought to be.
So really this value for value model, which we built over time, and we've kind of turned it into its three things: your time, your talent, or your treasure. So you can support us in any of those ways. Just make it meaningful to you. That has really turned into such a beautiful, here it is, community, but maybe more like a tribe. It feels more like a tribe. With people like we have no agenda shop. They do T-shirts, mugs, hats. We have no commercial agreement, nothing at all with them. We say, and they do split the money with the artists whose art they use, which again, we also get for nothing. People just like to compete. So we have new album art every show, but there's maybe 20 pieces we can choose from. They give the artist a piece. They keep a piece. They send us something to us once in a while. There's no accounting or anything. Fine. But there's a million things. We put all our data was open right away. No copyright. Do whatever you want. We have search engines. We have players with transcripts. We have all this stuff going on that people just put together to enhance the experience for everybody. We don't run our infrastructure. We haven't for 13 years. We pay a little bit a month to keep it running, but all of that is run by Void Zero, complete volunteers, a group of people you can fall back on. Just all of this. We have lawyers who when Fox started promoting Laura Logan, no agenda, like, no, you can't do that. We had copyright lawyers and trademark lawyers go to work for us. Let me just do this. And help us and support us. And so it's that vast of, all the way to, here's some CBD that I grew in my backyard, or here's $1,000 that I've been saving up. It's all kinds of things. I'm always surprised, but it's the feedback loop that we create whether someone's giving us information in a note or a donation in a note. Those notes, that really tells you how you're doing. That's a feedback loop that is very special. I think about, we're getting ready to relaunch the next iteration of Night Attack. And one thing that has always been such a joy is how light I feel by not having any secrets out there that I'm worried about. You know what I mean? You got to be bulletproof if you're going to do this kind of show.
Well, exactly, right?
And, you got to be. You get screwed real quick.
And you really find out quickly either you are going to blow up or you're going to become bulletproof. Even if you think you're going to hold something back, eventually it'll leak out.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
So has which leads me to there's another podcast that Justin and I have an affinity for, which is also highly confessional. Dan Harmon's Harmontown, but in that case, he didn't change, but the world changed around him. Mm-hmm. And I had a full-on panic attack when I realized all of the things we've confessed over all the years of our comedy shows. I was like, oh no, I thought that the world didn't have anything on me. Now the world has everything on me, and they could just decide, to cherry pick some moment from the past. And do you ever worry about that? Or I would imagine that the insulation would be the strength of your community in that case.
Well, I think what you're talking about is being canceled.
For something that.
So there's two parts of that. One, we're uncancelable because you can't.
Who are they going to leverage against?
We've never relied on social media. I still use Twitter as an inbox, kind of. So we never relied on that. It's also taken 14 years to grow the audience. We weren't like an out of the box hit or anything. It's been a very slow growth. And quite honestly, you need a minute to get into it. Like, what the hell is this? What's going on here? Right. A lot of people don't make it through that first piece. And then the only other piece, which is what, there's really, I started podcasting 2.0, which is, and we started that in August, because I saw that the next frontier would literally be podcasts. They're coming for the podcast. They want to control it. They want to control how it's being distributed. And I felt I had enough credentials to say, no, we're not going to let that happen. So we started podcastindex.org, completely independent. We have we'll pass 4 million podcasts this month.
Nice.
More than anybody has. Now, there's also a lot of shit in there, which is dead stuff from Anchor and whatever. But we have them all. Nothing is getting taken off. You can always access it because and that's partially my fault, but also just how things rolled. Apple became the default. Apple became the boss of podcasting. And anyone who had an independent podcast app was tied into the Apple database because it's very difficult to aggregate and
they were scraping
parse
their directory.
Well, they actually have an API that you could access, so you could do a lot just by accessing Apple. Some people scrape their whole directory and maintain their own, but that's a lot of work, and it costs a lot of machine power, and it's just not a simple thing to do. And with Dave Jones, I set out, because we've been doing this for 10 years, aggregation. We built all kinds of products that 3 people used. And I said, I think this is the one. Let's build a complete open index, and let's have an API for free that anyone can build a podcast app with, because this was my mistake when I agreed to, they would have done it anyway, to have Apple put podcasting into iTunes and the iPod at the time. I also gave them the directory and said, yeah, this is a good start. What happened is all this money, all this deal flow that everyone's getting, the application developers who make podcast apps are not in that loop. So they're either doing it just because they love it, want to make a different app. They can get, there's this fake pricing that Apple introduced of, it's 99 cents. That's just what your work costs, slave. Shut up. That's
right.
Hey, Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
That song, I Want to Hold Your Hand, 99 cents.
Right.
I mean, that's not price discovery.
Well, and to be fair, if anybody is younger than 30, man, I can't even describe the vibe around the year 2000 with piracy and the music industry crumbling all around. They were happy. Mm-hmm. All the artists were happy that somebody was saying, "You mean money again?" Yeah. Yes.
Well, so it didn't work out that great. Once Spotify came into existence, and all the record companies were part of that cabal. But I realized that I had successfully built a radio transmitter with RSS feeds, and we have an index which is not only can you not take it down, if you do, there's copies everywhere now. Anyone can spin it up all over the world. We're going to make that even more decentralized. But now there's this opportunity to have a whole bunch of different experiences created around podcasting, not just what Apple thinks or what Spotify or Google or Amazon or even Overcast, which is independent and quite big. So now we have 20 different apps, and they all have different functionality. And the one thing that was bugging me is this deal flow. These guys are not in the flow, and they'll never build a business if they're just kind of selling it for 99 cents maybe, or some ads or something.
So passive income that is being made through advertising and all these other ways that podcasts are monetized.
So I took the value for value model, and I said, wouldn't it be cool if you could just say, look, I think a podcast is worth $1 an hour. I listen to it. If I listen 2 hours, it's $2. What if you just committed that? The money's in your pocket, but when you hit play, then it just starts, every minute sends 1/60th of $1 to the podcaster. Ooh. But not just the podcaster. Let's send 1% to the app that it's being played on. Maybe we split up that podcaster because he has, there's 2 people, so it would be, half to you, and then maybe put someone else in who's an artist. So you can kind of create this digital royalty system that's coming directly from the person who is receiving the MP3 value, sending back a digital monetary value. And at that time, the Lightning Network, which is a layer 2 for Bitcoin, had just kind of come into its own. It's been around for 2 years. I just dove real deep, and Dave and I looked at it and said, we think we can do this. And we did. And so now we have 5 different apps with a wallet. You fill up your wallet with like $10 or $20, and you can determine how much per minute goes to any compatible podcast that you're listening to. There's also a boost button, so very much like a like, or a heart or something like that. Instead of hearts flying, it's like 500 satoshis, which is about 10 cents. But you can make it 5,000 or whatever you want to do. On the other side, the podcaster now sees, holy shit, at 1 hour and 15 minutes, I got a whole bunch of these boosts. So something must have happened there that was really good and exciting. So now we have this feedback loop, and this is uninterruptible money. No one can stop this. No one can, if depending on how you handle it. I mean, if you're FBI and you pretend that you ransomware the Colonial Pipeline and then you've got it back from yourself. Okay, that's one way to do it.
Right. In general, hypothetically, just hypothetically, drive by on that one.
Well, the FBI has what we've identified for a long time.
We don't need it. We don't need to.
But so if I'm following correctly, you've got the listener, you've got the creator, and you have a completely decentralized blockchain in between, and you've got finally the ability to do microtransactions at the level that we've been promised for 50 years. And all of a sudden, man, that sounds wonderful.
It's working. I mean, it's working. There's thousands of dollars a day circulating through the system. We know that, and it's all optional. You don't have to. You can listen to the podcast for free. It doesn't stop playing. You can do whatever you want.
It's kind of like Coil. You know about the Coil thing, the web monetization thing?
Except that's actually centralized and run by a company, and this is every man for himself. So your wallet is your responsibility. And what I really love about it is that there's just no middleman. So when someone presses play and at the minute mark, something goes to you, something goes to you, something goes to you, something goes to the index, you can actually change it or tip someone higher who's in that list. I mean, this is going to ruin ASCAP BMI is my plan.
And it's voluntary on all sides. It's opt-in for the consumer. It's opt-in for the producer.
And what we've learned, and this is what our big discovery almost 14 years ago, if you say to people, hey man, support me $5 a month, you'll get people who send you $5 a month. Right. If you say, hey man, support me with whatever this is worth to you, you're going to get some people who send you $5 a month. You'll also get people who send you 50. And there's going to be a couple who will send you 500.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you cannot determine the value, the price that someone is willing to put on something they get. And when you ask someone, and my wife is a nonprofit professional, communications professional, and she's said the number one reason why people do not give money to charities is because the charity didn't ask.
Yes.
And that's the hardest thing, is to say, hey man, send us some value, send us some money. That's the hardest thing to get over that. It's kind of a weird hump.
The commercial example that I've heard of is the reason Starbucks made it empire was because they took a 99-cent commodity in every gas station and they figured out a way to create a pleasant experience for you to sit with your laptop, and then politely ask you, how much would you like to pay for this hour that you've spent in this pleasant place? And you can figure out a way to spend $23 on a single latte, and they make that possible. And the way the biggest mistake that I think most content creators make is they think two-dimensionally. They think that because your YouTubes, all of your they're focused on head counts as if every head was the same, and of course they're not. The real estate that you occupy in somebody's mind is not two-dimensional, it's three-dimensional. It's like if you picture a gravity well of a black hole or whatever, and at the very top you have people who, I just came here to find out how to fix my carburetor. They're in, they're out, they don't care who you are, they found out the thing, right? And they're like, I'm here for your carburetor shenanigans. I like it, I might buy a t-shirt. And then you keep on going deeper, and then you eventually get deep enough where there's not even a product. And you said some kind words about this property. The truth be told, we got 90% of this property built, and I ran out of money. And it was now time for me to either take out a loan for $100,000 or figure something out. And so we established.
So when did you decide to do the turn tricks? That's the part that's kind
of. He's got so much space for it. So,
I know how to do tricks. But that plaque over there, the Founders Club plaque, it wasn't fun to confess that we're almost there, but we don't have it. But really,
that was because I know all this. It was a totally honest, beautiful moment, and I walked in here and I'm like, oh shit, that's so cool. That's the first thing I saw. I was like, wow, that really represents real love.
Right. Real love. Well, and it was very hard. It was very tempting to just say, who wants to give me $50? I'll send you a rock from the property. You can have a piece of property for $50. And then it's like, well, somewhere out there, somebody wants a little bit more. And somebody's like, can I have a tree named after me? They're like, yeah, great. Who wants to send me $500? I'll name a tree after you. And then somebody was like, well, can I stay at the property at some point? I'm like, yeah, who wants to send me $5,000? You can stay on the property. And then it creates this map where people are able to self-select their level of commitment. And the weird part was, number one, I'm really glad that we didn't skimp on the plaque, because we actually part of it was we did a chalk rubbing of every single name and sent it to every single person, so that they know it. And every time we post a picture and that's in the background, people we get the tweets of people zooming in. You're like,
what did you raise, if you mind me asking?
We were able to raise about $100,000.
Nice. Very nice.
And it was I believe in only 6 weeks. And we had to put a limit. We decided arbitrarily that the limit would be 999 people, and then we made the plaque. And it was truly astonishing that for the first time there was like a monetary map of the real estate that we had the value of measure, because there had been people who had been watching since 2008.
Of course. And they saw the value and they wanted to contribute, and you just asked and whoa, it works.
The weirdest part was after doing all of that, I sent out an email to all 1,000 and I'm like, hey, somebody pointed out that they don't actually even want a piece of the property. They would prefer that we not send them a rock. Will you self-sort? And we had a poll. What would you like? A shout out? Would you like a thank you? Would you like nothing at all? And fully a third of people were like, don't do a goddamn thing. I've already got the value that I needed. That's why I sent you what I sent you. I love the simplicity and the honesty of the value for value, and the fact that there are multiple currencies. You said time, talent, and
treasure.
And treasure. Yeah.
And it's scary. I mean, it took us a long time. I mean, we couldn't just I sold my airplane. I had a Cessna 182.
We've all been there.
I ate that fucker. And, I lived off of that. We kind of got a little bit further, and there's been ups and downs, and then finally we were able to go to 2 days a week, and that was sustaining, and it's kind of been that way for a long time. But there comes a point when, a great show is we felt great, had a good time. Can I pay the rent? Can I pay the mortgage? That's it. No other meetings, no jacking off advertisers, no one's pissed about whatever. Don't have to look at the numbers. I really, up until just recently, really didn't know how many people potentially would be listening, because we didn't have to. So as far as I'm concerned, we were still 100 or 1,000, or it doesn't matter. Except for the professionals that you see show up, like, military, medical, banking, government, scholastic. It's everybody is doing something that is valuable to us for their information.
That was a big moment for us when, and I know you're probably not a fan of their centralized nature, but when we discovered the early days of Patreon,
Patreon,
and when we went
basically
independent,
it was a version of what we were doing, except they have levels, which I just think you're selling yourself short, because you can do most of this yourself, and it's irritating that Patreon, makes determination about what is acceptable.
They pick winners and losers, and
they kick people off. I mean, again, that's the point that I want to get to is. The internet is not Silicon Valley. The internet is the thing that comes out of the wall, and you have a connection, and you can do all this stuff with it. And kids should be taught how to set up some simple, server stuff. Just understand how it works, because that's where the creativity lies.
I think you are absolutely right, in the same way that everybody should probably understand the basic nature of how a car works.
You can't even do anything with a car these days.
Right?
But that's the same with the iPhone. They're locking you into the simplicity.
Sure.
You can't do anything.
One thing I would say about Patreon that was tremendously beneficial was it was a brand that needed to exist to get people over the hump to pay.
It's better than value for value. You said what? Patreon, everyone knows.
It was just as soon as it became a thing where it's like, here's my Patreon, and now you've heard it enough, and it became like it wasn't a scary site. I would be happy getting my credit card out and going to Patreon and doing it. That was very valuable.
I love that. Because if you take just the Patreon model, there's 100. It's just simple. 100 million people in America listen to at least 1 hour of podcasts per day. That's the number. So that's 700 million hours of content. Let's say we can get 1% of that to pay $1 an hour. Now you're talking some interesting numbers for any podcaster. There's $1 million a day flowing somewhere. Do you want a piece of that? Right. And what if someone says, you know what? It's not an hour to me, $1. It's $10. I mean, this is what we're seeing this happen. the model works. It's something in our human nature. I can't explain it. It's really counterintuitive because you think people just want shit for free. But when you say, "Hey, this is valuable,"
in his book Influence, Dr. Charles Cialdini talks about one of the fixed action patterns, the stimulus response parts of our brains. Boy, do humans not like owing anybody anything, and will we do crazy things to balance the scales?
Wow, that is so right. People will often say, this is how the whole douchebag thing came about. I didn't decide to call our listeners douchebags if they didn't donate. No, people would say in their own notes, "Hey, call out George, my brother's a douchebag. He introduced me to the thing. He's never sent any money." Guaranteed the next week, George is like, "I need a de-douching because here's my money."
Right.
Yeah. You're right. This guilt thing of I owe someone something. That's a very good point.
It's not even a guilt thing. The example he uses
is having a clean slate.
It's implicit. Like it's not even a thing where necessarily like you are told you are in debit.
No, it's just
but like
you feel you want to provide value. Wow, right. I didn't. I got to reread that.
The mismatch that's fascinating is the monetary compensation people are willing to do to shed that guilt or that discomfort, let's say, is completely unrelated to the value of the thing. For example, you get on a airplane. I say, "Hey, I know you guys are working really hard. I got another 3 flight attendants. I got each of you a bag of M&Ms. There you go. Here you go. Enjoy free drinks the entire flight long. You get $50 of value. That costs them nothing."
Total fact, Ashley did that on one of our trips, and like because she's vegan, she just got every little thing. They were pulling stuff out of their own snacks to like feed her. But yeah, she got cookies for all of them, and it was just like a parade of free things.
Well, and that extends even to the way you do content. The rules are different on YouTube from podcasting. Podcasting, usually you buckle up, you're in for the whole ride. Whereas YouTube, it's like crossed arms, like, okay, you got 10 seconds. So I try to make sure that the first 10 seconds contains, as I think of it, a gift, a self-contained unit of joy, where even if that's all you see of the thing, you've been given a gift, and then you're like, all right, go on, and then hopefully you eventually get into to the story.
And part of that has all been corrupted by free content from YouTube, where now everybody knows, well, it's not really free. They're really getting my data, and so people already feel like I've already contributed, and not really knowing that they're not contributing to the creator, etc. So anyway, a long way of saying there's definitely an alternative method that is, I feel, much more honest, because you're never self-censoring unless for whatever reason, but not because someone else told you can't say something or might screw up some messaging. The feedback is direct and harsh. If people stop paying you that will get your attention. So these things keep
you guys
pretty good
broadcast
balance.
Live, and I assume you have a live chat while you're watching. So you get to see real time.
Yeah, we have the troll room.
Right.
We just call them what they are. We've had that for 12 years or so. So that is on my left screen lower, just a simple IRC command line, and of course, that your brain is seeing everything, but you don't recognize it. But it's uncanny how I'll be talking and like, let me look over here, and there's something like a perfect one-liner or a piece of information or something.
Yeah, I think we couched it as we called the chat room our writer's room, and we said, here's the deal. You guys say whatever you want, and we get to steal any line we want and not credit you because you're in the writer's room. What? I guess we're coming up on an hour now, right?
And I apologize for being rude, but we're supposed to close on our house. We're supposed to close on it yesterday, selling the house.
So rude.
Oh man,
closing on a house.
And my wife. And so we were waiting for.
He's waiting for the money from his plane to clear. So that old canard.
Adam, it is a true joy to hang out with you. I can't thank you enough for making the trip out. I'm so excited. I assume No Agenda Podcast is
noagendashow.net or noagendashow.com. That all works. Podcasting 2.0, you can find it podcastindex.org. And I would ask everybody who's listening one favor: try a new podcast app. newpodcastapps.com. We have 20 different new features above and beyond what your podcast app can do now, with chapters, transcripts, location, person, extended search. It'll tickle your balls. I mean, it's a fantastic experience to try a new podcast app. All of your existing shows will work.
I do have one humble request, and it's for your blessing, because in the future, the podcast index is going to take over the world. The microtransactions is going to take over the world, and we're already hearing from proselytizers who and hearing you say it. I get it. I believe it. But we're in the middle of launching a podcast called World's Greatest Con. And it's
on Podcast Index.
It's on Podcast Index. Yep. However, we are requesting that purely for mercenary purposes, with no love in their heart, just so we can crawl up a couple more slots on that goddamn Apple charts that they also subscribe on the Apple charts. Will you officially give the blessing for, with hate in their heart?
No. Look, I have no problem with people using the Apple app. Sadly, when they started subscriptions, they changed the way they do business. That completely borked people who were still using them for the apps. Luckily, we were there to help them, like Overcast. They came right over to us, Marco. Now, because they've switched the system, you've probably seen that you update your podcast and it takes an hour or 2 hours or a day.
Oh, boy.
And so we invented something called PodPing, which now we're using. So if you're on Buzzsprout or Blueberry or RSS.com or whatever it is, the minute you publish, in under 40 seconds, it shows up on every single app. Oof. And I would love for Apple to use this. It's open. It's actually on a different blockchain. Anybody can use it. We don't own it. No one owns it. It would solve so many problems, including Apple's problems. But I don't think they give a flying fuck.
You're right.
They had a feature like that. A few years ago, you used to be able to click a button to refresh your feed on their side every so often.
Well, actually, yeah,
but I think they got rid of it.
The app was doing the aggregation itself, so they only got the information from the index, right. And it would.
On the creator side, you could go in and say, "Hey, you could update my feed." Yeah. But they got rid of that button.
No, they don't. They don't love you. They want subscriptions.
They love your money.
They've got subscriptions.
That's even them getting like a 1/5 of a chub for podcasting, which they have essentially dominated from the very, very beginning.
And they did nothing. They did nothing for.
Oh my God!
For years and years.
We were very good friends with both members of the staff for Apple, that defined the podcasting game, and they were both very, very nice guys. Yeah. But I remember having a conversation with one of them saying, like, I went into a meeting and I said, podcasting is a multi-million-dollar, possibly $100 million business for us. And the people were like, "What? Let us know when when you're talking about real money."
Exactly.
But anyway, yeah. So number one, we'll take that as a yes. Everybody who listens to No Agenda should go to World's Greatest Con, greatestconpodcast.com. We'll give you all the links, including Podcast Index, that you can go find
and
it
give
on.
a positive review on Apple Podcasts.
Hell yeah.
Really, no, the reviews don't do anything. Just subscribe right now for the next 48 hours because we're in the top 100.
We are this close to being for one blessed second ahead of Dan Carlin.
Yeah, we are only two away from Papa Carlin. So,
Steve, thank you so much,
Adam. My pleasure.
I know you got to go buy a house.
No, sell one. This is selling.
Selling the house, and then
buying is next week.
You're gonna.
It's a tense time right now. God. My wife is going, "Hello, how come you haven't answered me? Hello."
Get out of here. We'll shut it down.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate
it. Time of the day or night.
Thanks for the money, dog. Appreciate the guappuccino, baby.